My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. John 10:27. There's a sound that interrupts the silence. It comes suddenly, like a whisper wrapped in lightning, not from the outside, not through ears, but through the spirit, a high-pitched ringing, a fine, almost imperceptible vibration. No one else hears it, but you do. And in that moment, even if for just a few seconds, something in you knows, this is not normal. This is not natural. This is a message. For the chosen ones, nothing happens by chance. Not the dreams, not the timing, and certainly not the sound. You may have dismissed it once, brushed it off as medical, called it tinnitus, tried to explain it away, but now it's happening more often, in moments of prayer, in moments of pain, in moments of decision. You're not imagining it. You're being contacted. Because when heaven needs to interrupt the noise of your world, it doesn't always use words. Sometimes it uses frequency. Sometimes it bypasses your logic, your emotion, even your theology, and simply rings like a divine siren buried deep in the soul. This sound is not meant to make sense. It's meant to make you stop. Because this is a spiritual case file moment. Heaven documented this signal long before you could interpret it. Before you were born, a scroll was written. Inside that scroll was your name, your mission, and the alerts that would sound when it was time to awaken. The ringing is not a glitch. It's a prophetic marker. It comes when transition is near, when you're about to cross into territory that changes everything, when what's unseen demands your attention, and what's coming cannot be ignored. It's not a sound. It's a summons. And only those with tuned ears can hear it. The spiritually sensitive, the deeply marked, the divinely haunted. You feel it because you're built for it. You were never meant to just live. You were meant to listen. And the ringing, it's the first crack in the veil, a subtle yet undeniable pull that says, you're being called. You're being shifted. You're being aligned. Hell wants you to ignore it, to doubt it, to medicate it, to dismiss it as stress, fatigue, or fantasy. But your spirit knows better. Your spirit remembers. It remembers the throne. It remembers the assignment. It remembers the voice of the one who sent you. And this sound, it's the prelude to that voice. So the next time it rings, don't rush past it. Don't drown it with noise. Don't question your sanity. Don't reduce it to biology. Pause, breathe, ask, Lord, what are you saying? Because what sounds like ringing to the world is actually heaven raising the volume on your destiny. And it's just getting started. He chose us in Him before the foundation of the world. Ephesians 1:4. You didn't choose this sound. It chose you. Before your ears ever caught that frequency, before your heart ever felt that flutter in the silence, you had already been set apart. Not when you started going to church, not when you learned to pray, not when someone laid hands on you. Before the foundation of the world, you were marked. This is why the ringing isn't just random. It's ancestral. It's eternal. It's the echo of an assignment that was written before you had a body to carry it. Heaven didn't just create you. Heaven sent you, like Joseph, whose dreams marked him for isolation. Like Esther, positioned before the crisis ever came. Like Jeremiah, appointed before his own birth certificate was written. You were crafted with a calling, and heaven placed triggers inside your timeline. Moments, signals, spiritual breadcrumbs designed to remind you who you are. The ringing is one of them, because you weren't made to live distracted. You weren't created to blend in. You weren't built for the noise of earth alone. You were given sensitivity for a reason. And sensitivity is not a curse. It's spiritual intelligence. That fine sound in your ears is not an accident. It's heaven saying, now. Wake up. The next scroll is opening. You feel what others ignore. You sense what others brush off. You pause when others press play, because something in you is responding to the original frequency of your assignment. Your ringing is not your weakness. It's your reminder. It's how God stirs the memory you buried beneath performance, fear, and rejection. You were not called to survive noise. You were called to translate vibration, and only the chosen, the truly sent, carry that wiring. That's why the sound chooses you. It comes when you're doubting. It comes when you're drifting. It comes when heaven says, bring them back now, because your destiny is too weighty to be left to chance. And that ringing, it's not noise. It's a knock on the door of your spirit from the same God who knew your name before your family ever did. You're not going crazy. You're growing conscious. You're tuning in. And when you start listening differently, you'll realize something shocking. That sound has always been there. You just hadn't remembered who you were yet. Now you do. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, rulers of the darkness of this world, and spiritual wickedness in high places. Ephesians 6:12. You think the sound was small, but hell took it personally, because when the ringing starts, it means something in you has been activated. And when a chosen one activates, hell assembles. Let me take you behind the veil. There is a council, not of men, but of spirits, entities that specialize in sabotage, ancient watchers, demonic advisors, whisperers of confusion and heaviness. They are not random. They are assigned to delay you, assigned to distract you, assigned to make sure you never answer the call that's been vibrating in your soul since before birth. And when that piercing ring invades your silence, it's not just a sound, it's a signal that your frequency is rising, a signal that you are starting to hear beyond the natural, a signal that heaven is drawing you closer and the veil is thinning. And hell, it panics at that sound, because that ring is not for everyone. Only those who carry spiritual weight hear it this way. Only those who threaten ancient altars get the echo. Only those chosen to interrupt cycles feel the pressure in their ears and the fire in their bones. The enemy sees your ears are opening, your spirit is awakening, your vibration is changing. So he launches his strategy, not through shock and awe, but through subtle sabotage, distraction dressed as busyness, doubt disguised as logic, exhaustion masked as normal life. Because the goal is not to kill you, the goal is to muffle you, to keep you numb, to keep you detached, to make you think it was just a sound when it was really a summons. You see, demons don't fear Christians who listen casually. They fear the ones who discern divine interruptions. And if you've ever stopped everything because of a moment of piercing stillness, if you've ever felt the need to pause and pay attention to what can't be seen, that's not weakness. That's spiritual awareness. That's the kind of radar only heaven gives. And it's the kind of radar that makes hell tremble. Because when you start asking, Lord, what are you trying to say in this sound? You begin to hear strategies. You begin to hear names. You begin to receive assignments. And the council of darkness loses its grip, because now you're not living on autopilot. Now you're walking in alertness. You're listening like Elijah, standing in silence, waiting for the whisper, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, not in the wind, but in the frequency that few can hear. The ringing in your ear is not a symptom. It's a signal of surveillance. It means your awakening has been noticed. But don't fear it, because while hell has gathered in secret to stop you, heaven has already ruled in public to send you. You are not the victim of the sound. You are the vessel, and the vibration in your ear, that's not noise. That's divine code. Heaven is speaking. Are you listening? I cry out to you, God, but you do not answer. I stand up, but you merely look at me. Job 30:20, be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. There are seasons in the life of the chosen where the loudest sound is silence. You've prayed, you've fasted, you've begged for clarity, and heaven is quiet. No word, no dream, no confirmation, just stillness, like a divine pause that makes your soul ache. And in that stillness, just when you start to think God has gone silent, the ringing comes, a fine, high-pitched hum, not from your surroundings, but from somewhere deeper. You stop, and even though there are no words, you feel the pressure of presence. It's not God shouting, it's God tuning. Because when heaven stops speaking, it starts aligning. This ringing isn't a distraction, it's an invitation to lean in, to be still, to shift from listening with your ears to listening with your spirit. There's a sacred tension in that kind of silence, the kind Job lived in, the kind David cried in, the kind where you start questioning your own worth. Have I done something wrong? Have I missed the voice? Why does God feel further away now that I'm seeking Him more than ever? But let me tell you, this silence is not rejection. It is sacred construction. God is not ignoring you. He's sharpening your sensitivity. Because when you stop hearing external words, you start catching internal frequency. That ringing, that sudden interruption in the quiet, it's heaven's way of saying, I'm still here. You're still mine. You're still on schedule. It's the whisper in the wilderness, the alignment before the announcement. The ringing isn't heaven's absence. It's heaven's preparation. Because what God is building in you during the silence cannot be constructed in noise. He is forming deeper roots, clearing out counterfeit desires, breaking you from performance-driven faith. And in place of your need for constant answers, He gives you frequency. He gives you that sound, that whisper, that ring. The chosen ones hear it most in seasons of darkness, not because they're being punished, but because they're being positioned. So if you've been in that place, that aching place, in that room where God seems quiet and life feels loud, and the ringing comes, don't ignore it. Don't rush past it. Don't dismiss it. Respond to it. Ask, Lord, what are you tuning in me that requires silence to hear? Because your ears aren't malfunctioning. They're maturing. You're no longer a servant waiting on orders. You're a son, a daughter, and the sound you hear, that's not heaven forgetting you. That's heaven refining you until your very soul vibrates at the frequency of glory. And soon, when the silence lifts, you'll realize God wasn't gone. He was closer than He'd ever been, and the ringing was His fingerprint. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. Galatians 6:7. The Lord is known by His acts of justice. Psalm 9:16. There comes a moment in the spirit when the stillness breaks. You've sat in the silence. You've endured the fire. You've heard the ringing and wondered what it meant. And then it shifts, not with words, not with thunder, but with weight. Something begins to move behind the veil. You can feel it in your bones. Heaven isn't just watching anymore. Heaven is responding. Because the ringing, it wasn't just a spiritual nudge. It was the bell that signals the law of return. Every tear you sowed in secret, every battle you faced without applause, every injustice that made you question your calling, they are now being weighed on the scales of eternity. And God, the righteous judge, is tipping those scales in your favor. You thought that sound was random, but in the courts of heaven, it was a decree. The ring was the beginning of the return, not just a sound, but a spiritual announcement that the cycle of injustice is being reversed. The seeds you sowed in brokenness are about to return in authority. The betrayal you endured quietly is about to echo in public vindication. The silence you carried with grace is about to break open in heaven's thunder. This is not karma. This is kingdom justice. And God does not repay casually. He repays with precision. He returns with interest. He restores in full. The ringing was your signal that the reversal is now in process. Doors closed by man will be reopened by God. Words that wounded you will be turned into weapons of intercession. The very attacks the enemy launched will become the evidence God uses to elevate you. Because what you sowed in surrender, you will reap in glory. You didn't retaliate, and now heaven will respond on your behalf. The ringing was not warning of destruction. It was the trumpet of reversal. It came when you were on the edge of giving up. It came when the accusations were too heavy. It came when the breakthrough looked furthest away, and it whispered what only the chosen could hear. Justice is moving. Stay aligned. I have not forgotten your obedience. Hell doesn't fear your shout. It fears your consistency, your refusal to break when everything around you is breaking. And now, the God who records every cry, every seed, every sacrifice, is fulfilling his word. The measure they used against you is returning to them, but for you, double honor. The ringing was not to distract you. It was to remind you, you are not fighting in vain. Heaven has kept the records, and the return has already begun. A river of fire was flowing, coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands attended him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated and the books were open. Daniel 7:10. The ringing was never just a sound. It was a summons, a divine alert that your case, your pain, your delay, your obedience had been brought before the court of heaven. And now the courtroom doors are open. You are not entering as a victim. You are not entering as a beggar. You are walking in as a child of covenant. And the judge, he's not waiting for evidence. He already has it. Every tear, every betrayal, every night you chose worship over bitterness, every time you stayed silent when you could have defended yourself. All of it is in the scrolls. The prosecution came with accusations. The enemy recited your failures, your fears, your past. He quoted your sins like legal loopholes. But then the defender rose, your advocate, your intercessor, your blood-covering king. And he did not plead. He declared, "This one is mine. This one is covered. This one is cleansed. This one is rising." And the judge? He looked over the record. He saw the pain. He heard the silence. He felt the ringing, that sacred signal that something deeper was happening. And with holy fire in his voice, he said, "Case closed. The delay is over. The sentence is justice. The verdict is restoration. And when heaven rules, hell has no appeal." Let this echo through your spirit. You are not under accusation. You are under announcement. Your life is no longer on trial. You are being commissioned. Heaven is issuing decrees over you right now. Release the inheritance. Break the generational curse. Loose the scroll. Elevate the voice they tried to bury. Because when the judge rules in your favor, the entire spiritual realm must respond. Angels are dispatched. Chains are shattered. Scrolls are unsealed. Assignments are unlocked. And the ringing in your ears? It was the gavel in the spirit. You heard it before you saw it. Because the chosen don't walk by sight. They walk by frequency. So if you've felt the vibration, the pulling, the fine sound that no one else noticed, now you know what it was. Heaven was calling you into the court, so it could rule in your favor. You don't need to fight for justice anymore. You just need to walk in the verdict. And the verdict is approved, released, elevated, sent, Instead of your shame, you will receive a double portion. Isaiah 61:7. There's a moment in the life of the chosen where God no longer hides what he was healing in secret, where the ringing you once heard alone becomes the announcement of your restoration. This is not just private peace. This is public honor. The same people who whispered, "They won't make it," will now witness what happens when heaven gets involved. That table isn't being set in secret. It's being prepared in front of your enemies. Not so you can gloat, but so that God's justice can be seen. Because when God restores, he doesn't whisper it. He announces it with oil, with overflow, with elevation that no one can deny. You were faithful when it hurt. You praised while bleeding. You stood in the storm while others walked away. Now heaven is answering, and it's answering with visibility. What they mocked, God is now magnifying. What they ignored, God is now igniting. What they called weakness, God is now using as a platform of power. The ringing wasn't a warning of defeat. It was the first note in heaven's processional for your coronation. Because this, right here, this is where the oil flows in public. This is your Joseph moment, betrayed by brothers, imprisoned by false accusations, forgotten by men, but remembered by God. And when heaven opens the scroll, Joseph doesn't just get out of the prison, he's promoted in front of the very system that tried to silence him. This is your season of visible redemption. Not for your ego, but for his glory. Because God is not just proving your innocence, he's displaying your anointing. He's lifting you up. Not because you performed, but because you endured. You didn't try to vindicate yourself, and now he will. The ringing was a signal that honor was already on the way. It came before the door opened. It came before the call back. It came before the favor dropped. Because God always gives spiritual notification before physical manifestation. And here's the truth. He's not just restoring what you lost. He's multiplying it. You lost friends? He's sending destiny partners. You lost peace? He's giving you governance over the same atmosphere that tormented you. You lost time? He's redeeming the years the locusts devoured with double strength. This is more than recovery. This is public honor for private obedience, and every ear that heard your breakdown will now hear the resonance of your breakthrough. They didn't understand the ringing, but now they'll understand the rising. Because when heaven honors you, no demon, no delay, no dysfunction can stop it. Walk in it. But I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail, and when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. Luke 22:32. We comfort others with the comfort we ourselves have received from God. 2 Corinthians 1:4. The ringing wasn't just about warning you, it was awakening you, because what tried to break you was actually trying to birth you. And now you see it. Your tears weren't random. Your warfare wasn't wasted. Your sensitivity wasn't a setback. It was your training ground. You weren't just being attacked. You were being equipped. That sound that interrupted your silence, it was heaven whispering, you're being prepared, not just to survive, but to lead. You were marked to carry something bigger than you, something the world didn't see coming, something hell tried to abort. And that's why the ringing came first, because heaven always calls the sensitive ones to the deepest assignments. Those who feel too much, they're the ones chosen to heal the most. Those who hear what others ignore, they're the ones called to speak what others avoid. That vibration in your ears, it was God pressing a spiritual seal into your assignment. Not a stage, but a calling. Not applause, but authority. Not attention, but impact. Your story is not just testimony, it's curriculum. Heaven is about to send you into places your pain has prepared you for. You cried in silence? Now you'll comfort others in their storm. You almost gave up? Now you'll break chains for those still trapped. You didn't understand why it had to be you? Now you'll teach others why they made it too. That's why the ringing came when it did. Because in the moment when you were about to break, God was marking you to be the breaker of generational fear, the breaker of cycles of silence, the breaker of spiritual confusion. You weren't just chosen, you were activated. You will speak what others have swallowed. You will carry what others dropped. You will feel what others numb, and you will lead them home. Because now, your wounds have turned into windows. Your battle has become a blueprint, and every place that was pierced in you now flows oil. Your ringing wasn't about spiritual warfare. It was about spiritual purpose. You're not crazy, you're called. You're not fragile, you're forged. And you're not just recovering, you're being released. Heaven didn't just preserve you, heaven is deploying you. So the next time you hear that sound, that soft, piercing reminder of who you are, don't flinch, don't doubt, don't ask for permission. Move, speak, lead, shift atmospheres, break the silence for someone else. Because this isn't just about your restoration anymore. It's about your mission, and it's already begun. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. Hebrews 3:15. Deep calls unto deep at the noise of your waterfalls. Psalm 42:7. Let me speak to you directly now, not as a voice in a video, but as someone who's felt what you're feeling. That quiet ringing, that strange moment when everything else fades and a sound you can't explain takes center stage? Yeah, I know it too. It doesn't make sense at first. You think it's stress. You try to ignore it. You brush it off like it's nothing, but your spirit won't let it go. Because you're not just hearing with your ears anymore. You're hearing with eternity. And you're not crazy. You're called. You're not broken. You're being beckoned. That sound? It wasn't random. It wasn't accidental. It wasn't background noise. It was the first note of your spiritual awakening. Heaven has been calling. Your assignment has been pressing. And now you're here, not by chance, but by divine appointment. Something inside you has always known you were different. The way you feel everything too deeply. The way you pick up on shifts in the room before anyone speaks. The way you cry for no reason, pray without knowing what for, and long for something more. You've tried to fit in. You've tried to silence the frequency. You've tried to ignore the sound, but it keeps coming. And now, you know why. You are the one God chose. Before the world told you who you were, He wrote your name in the scrolls. Before you ever heard that ringing, He sent a sound through the spirit realm to wake you up, not to a religion, not to a routine, but to a revelation that you are a carrier of something this world can't explain and hell can't stop. You've endured the storms. You've passed through the fire. You've heard the sound and now you feel the shift. And this is your moment. This is the turning point. You don't need a stage. You don't need permission. You just need to say yes. Say yes to the call. Say yes to the mission. Say yes to the frequency that's been echoing through your soul for years. Say yes to being the one who hears and finally responds. If you've been hearing the ringing, if you've been feeling the vibration, if your soul has been stirred even while your mind is still catching up, don't wait. Don't harden your heart. Surrender. Let the sound carry you back to your identity. Let the ringing remind you of your assignment. Let this moment become your yes. Say it out loud if you must. Lord, I hear you, I feel you, and I say yes. Use me, awaken me, send me, because you weren't made to drown in noise. You were made to move in frequency. You're not just a listener anymore. You're about to become the one who speaks what heaven says next. Submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. James 4:7. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Psalm 91:1. This is it, not the end of a video, the beginning of your assignment. That sound you heard, that subtle frequency no one else noticed, it wasn't just a signal, it was a spiritual court summons. Heaven has issued a divine call-up. You are no longer waiting for orders. The orders have been released. You've heard the sound, you've felt the shift, you've endured the warfare. Now the question is simple. What will you do with what heaven has revealed? Because the ringing wasn't a glitch, it was a gate. And those who walk through it, those who respond, step into a dimension of spiritual power that religion can't explain. You are being called to more than understanding. You are being called to obedience, to move when God says move, to speak when others stay silent, to carry the weight of His glory into places no one else would dare to go. And when you say yes, really yes, the ringing becomes a reverberation through every realm of darkness that said, they'll never rise. Hell thought you'd ignore it, that you'd dismiss it as nothing, that you'd get tired and scroll on. But now you know, it was never noise. It was a holy summons. The chosen ones are being activated, and you are one of them. This is your Elijah moment on Mount Carmel, your Esther moment before the king, your David moment in the field. No more waiting, no more apologizing, no more shrinking. Heaven is asking you to do one thing. Stand up in your spirit and say, yes, I hear you. I answer the call. I will not back down. Say it with fire. Say it with tears. Say it until the atmosphere around you changes. I am not afraid. I am not confused. I am not lost. I am chosen. I am activated. I am aligned. Now speak this out loud. I hear the sound, and I say yes. I am the frequency. I am the message. I am the one heaven is sending. Hell just heard it. Heaven already knew it. And the earth is about to feel it. If this message resonated in your soul, comment below. I heard the sound. I say yes. Share this video with every sensitive soul who's ever been told it's just in your head, because now we know it was in our spirit, and that means it's from God. Subscribe, stand up, and step in, because heaven is speaking, and the chosen ones are finally responding.